And let me just start off by introducing a very special guest,
Uh-oh.
Dr. Professor Stephen Weinstein is joining us. And he is not only one of my favorite people, but he is my favorite historian. We work together. How long have we been working together?
Almost 14 years.
Oh my God, I was a baby. And you were really a
I
baby.
was a baby.
We've been working together 14 years on so many projects that it would take the whole rest of the class to list all the projects. But we work together in the archives doing history projects. I think Stephen Weinstein's the only one I know who's as much in love with the history of New York as I am, and particularly Brooklyn. Stephen, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Well, like you said, born in Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay. I grew up in the Sheepshead Bay houses, public housing project. And I'm local. I went to Brooklyn College for undergraduate, and then graduate school at Columbia for my doctorate in history. I wrote a history of Coney Island. I don't mean to toot my horn so much, but when I read Gotham, which I know you're all looking at, I was very surprised that my dissertation was a major source for them. Unbeknownst to me. That was it. Of course, I was too lazy to ever turn it into a book, and I was fed up with the topic. So that never happened. But then a long story short, I went to live in Brazil for 7 years with my wife and came back, got a library school degree at Queens College. And then I was so fortunate to immediately find a job at LaGuardia and Wagner Archives.
Yay.
It literally saved my life, I would say.
Woo! And tell us just quickly what your father did for a living.
My father delivered the mail in Marine Park.
I love it. But who was it your grandfather then? Who am I thinking of? Who worked at
My grandfather was both of them were tailors, like in the old days.
Who worked at Steeplechase?
My father worked at Steeplechase every summer.
I love it.
I was able to get in for free. This was the best amusement park in the world. And it had rides that don't really exist anymore, like horse race, the steeplechase itself, the blowhole theater, the human roulette wheel, which I was too young, I wasn't allowed on that.
Now, most of my students, Stephen, most of my students never, anybody here, well, let me find out, has anybody here ever heard of Steeplechase Park out in Coney Island? Put your thumb up if you ever heard of Steeplechase Park in Coney Island. Anybody? Okay, so we're gonna have to tell them about Steeplechase Park. Just quickly, go ahead, Stephen, give it a shot. Give me 4 sentences on Steeplechase Park.
Well, it opened in it opened earlier in the late 1890s. It burned down, and the owner, Tillieu, came up with a great idea. He would sell the ashes for money. So this is the kind of entrepreneur he was.
But what is Steeplechase Park? What was it?
It's an amusement park, which was a collection of rides. One admission would get you into the park, as opposed to individually operated rides.
And it was at Coney Island. When you went to Coney Island, it was like a separate thing you did. You would say to your friends, you know, are we going to go swimming? Are we going to eat hot dogs? Are we going to get knishes? Or are we going to go to Steeplechase? And you needed 25 cents. How much did you need to get this?
Maybe a little more.
Yeah, a little more, but you needed some money. And they gave you this round ticket, right?
Yes, and each time you went on a ride, they punched a hole in one of the numbers.
Yes, and it had this guy's face, right?
Yeah, so it was located on the site where the Mets have a minor league team in Coney Island today. I think now it's called Keyspan Park. So it's Surf Avenue and about West 17th Street.
So let me just jump in, and then we'll go on with the class. I went to Steeplechase Park as a kid, of course, and know all those rides you're talking about. My one memory, which I think you were the one who cleared me up on it, was the steeplechase itself, the horse ride, which went all around the park. There were like, I'll make it up, 6 or 7 horses. It was not like a carousel or a merry-go-round. You actually went around on a path, and one horse would win. And as a kid, I really was convinced that the more I hit my horse and jumped up and down, that would make my horse win. But you told me.
I don't know what I told you. Maybe
Oh, it was predetermined.
Well, I suppose. I never won.
Which horse would win was had nothing to do with the kid. Anyway.
No.
Anyway, all right. Welcome to our class.
Thank you.
You're going to be working with me on documents as we have rehearsed. But I want to just make 2 announcements to the class. Number 1 is that your Hamilton homework is due today. So please, 4 questions from the Hamilton homework, get them to me today. I'm going to big weekend of grading papers, so I get those Hamilton answers to me today. And the questions that I handed out the last class on slavery in New York, I think you should all have it. If you don't, please put it in the chat to Oleg so he can send you these 7 questions, which are, most of them are based on Gotham. Gotham, I forget the 15A, and also on Restless City 100A. Here, no, Oleg, those aren't the questions. You're jumping ahead of me. These are the slavery questions from last Tuesday. You don't have to put them up. If anybody doesn't have them, there are 7 questions on what we talked about on Tuesday. You only have to do 4 of the 7. Pick your 4 favorite, and they're due Monday, May 10th. So write this down. These questions, I'm using the old 19th century method of holding it up. These questions that I sent out for class 2 days ago on slavery as one of the causes of the rise of New York, 1783 to 1849, 7 questions. Pick 4, your 4 favorites that you can really write about, and those answers are due a week from this Monday, May 10th. Okay, anybody have any questions on the homework? Put it in the chat, and Oleg will send you what you need, and if he gets confused, he'll talk to me, and I'll help him, and we'll send you what you need. So the Hamilton questions due today, the answers, I mean, and the slavery in New York answers are due a week from Monday. If you don't have the questions, if you don't have the handouts, whatever you don't have, put it in the chat. Oleg and I will work on getting you what you need, okay? So that is the announcement. Now, Oleg, you can put those questions up for today's class. Okay, so the theme of today's class is to go beneath the question of slavery in New York City that we did 2 days ago. 2 days ago, we looked at slavery in New York based on a secondary source, meaning Gotham or Restless City. Does anybody want to put in the chat the difference between a secondary and a primary source? So if anybody has a thought about what is the difference between a secondary and primary source, just put it in the chat.
Isn't a secondary like a journal entry or something like that?
All right, Daisy, say it louder, Daisy, so others can write it down.
A secondary document is like journal entries or stuff like that.
So you're very close. What Daisy just described, a journal entry. Daisy, is it a secondary source, meaning one step away from what happened, or is it a primary source?
It's a secondary source. It's kind of like your own opinion of something.
All right, so that's an interesting phrase. So when you write down your own opinion based on reading something, that would be a secondary source, right? Like if you read a letter that I wrote and you then had an opinion on that letter, your opinion on that letter would be a secondary source. But my letter itself would be what, Daisy?
A primary source.
Okay, does everybody understand that? That a document could be a photograph, a letter, a diary entry, anything that is created at the moment. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying anything that's created at the moment is a primary source. It's primary, it's the first source. And then historians come along years later and they look at these letters and they look at these diary entries and they look at photographs and journals and they interpret, as the historians who wrote Gotham or Restless City, that interpretation or answering the why question or the 5 W's, that becomes a secondary source because that historian wasn't there. They're interpreting the primary source. Anybody have any questions on primary or secondary source, or what is it? Put it in the chat and I'll respond. Or anybody just want to say any questions, please feel free. Okay, so these questions here are the W's that I've been talking about in terms of the questions that we ask a primary document. We look at a primary document and we ask that primary document to answer these questions, except for, I guess, the last one, right? What did you learn? Go ahead, Christian.
Can you repeat that? The difference between primary and secondary?
Can anybody repeat that for me? Who'd like to repeat that for me? The difference between primary and secondary. Narissa, you want to give it a shot?
I remember the first part which you said about primary. Primary is anything created at the moment, whereas like a secondary would be interpreting a primary source and giving like your own thoughts and opinions on it.
So that's very good. Ivan, what's an example in your own life in terms of a primary source and a secondary source in your own life experience?
A primary source would be perhaps a picture that I took where, let's say I went somewhere and I took a picture. That would be a primary source. And a secondary source would be someone else's thoughts on that picture I took.
Perfect, 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 perfect. Christian, you get it now?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, what a class, what a class. Okay, we can drop this shared screen. Weinstein, Professor Weinstein, you ready to look at a document and you and I will work together? You ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. The 2 historians you have, these 2 Jewish boys from Brooklyn, these two guys, these two boys from Brooklyn are gonna look at this primary source, and we're going to answer these questions as we're gonna model this, right? We're gonna model our answers. And then you and your breakout groups are gonna get another document to do the same thing. So pay close attention to what we do as historians in analyzing a document, and then you can model yourselves based on what we do as trained historians who spent our lives doing this. And I think I'll speak for myself. One of the reasons I've stayed in history is because I really love doing this. Weinstein, Steve, you want to say something about yourself and primary sources?
They're fun.
Okay, Oleg, we're ready to play what Lieberman and Weinstein can do with the primary source in answering.
How we manipulate them.
Right, manipulate them, which means, by the way, going back to Christian's question, means that we turn it into a secondary source. And the word manipulation is a great word because you got to be a little wary of the way we interpret, because it's based on our own sense of the world, right?
Yeah, so remember, there's no official right or wrong interpretation. It depends on what you bring to the table, your own background, your own knowledge, your own prejudices. So there's no right or wrong. There's different interpretations. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any more biographies of Abraham Lincoln. It's all done.
Yeah,
But instead, there is reinterpretations.
exactly right. Exactly right. And I'm sure all of you have experienced this in family discussions where you go over something that happened last weekend and every member of the family has a different take on what really happened at that gathering, or you were with a bunch of friends and something happened. Somebody either had a fight or didn't agree with each other. And then everybody then emails and talks about their interpretation of what happened. So what happened was the primary event and these interpretations of the secondary. So Oleg, let's do a shared screen and let Weinstein Lehman go at it so the class can sort of see what we do.
Document 2.
This is the document.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, this one. Now, can you get rid of this stuff on this side here? Create, yeah, and make it bigger, as big as you possibly can. All right, now move. Whoa, too big. Move a little smaller, and move it over. Okay. All right, Stephen, you want to go first? Who's the person that the document is focused on?
Well, first we have to read it.
All right. That's a very good lesson, everybody. Okay, so let's start reading this.
So you see, this is an official document of the city of New York. Okay, that's the author of the document. It says City of New York. And you can notice this is an old document. You don't see any date yet because New York is hyphenated, just like the New York Historical Society is hyphenated. We've long since dropped the hyphen. I just realized that now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what is this? What is this complaint? It says, whereas complaint on oath has been made before me. Who is this person? Can you read that name? Josiah Henderson or something like that? Can you read that? Oleg, can you make it a little bigger? I can't read it. It says problem with primary sources. Jacob? No. What happened? It turned blue. Porca? All right. So what do you think? Stephen, what do you think?
Well, I had seen it earlier. I think it's, I could very well be Jacob, but it's a little longer. We can go back to that later.
We'll go back to it. Okay, Oleg, make it a little
But
smaller.
he's identified who he is.
Okay.
He's a special justice.
Oh, he's a justice. He was a. Okay, can you read this stuff now after that? By what?
Yeah,
By what?
by Sylvester Judson.
Huh.
So he has made the complaint
All right. That what? And what's
that
he complaining?
Isabel,
Oh, there's the character, Isabel.
that's a woman,
Right.
uh,
A familiar? No. Make that
A
little-
former.
Oh, thanks, Ivan. A former. And
That's
what's
just a guess, though.
no? It looks. Steven, what do you think about Ivan's guess?
that's good. I would that it's either familiar or former, but
I think it's
familiar.
former. And what's the
Former
next?
is
What's the next word? Slave.
slave to him.
So to him, who was Isabel a slave to?
Though that's the person making the complaint,
And who is that?
Sylvester.
All right. So now we're learning something in terms of the 5 W's, right? We're starting to
Yes.
put together who, right? And we're saying who is the person that the document is focused on? It's focused on Isabel, right?
Yes.
And who wrote the document? You think it's this justice of the peace? Whatever.
Well, it's a
Henderson-
form document,
Yeah.
but yes, the justice of the, well, he's a special justice. He filled in the complaint.
Right. Okay, let's move on. So a former slave to him has what?
I think that's absented
Absented herself
herself
from
from his home,
and what?
requests to return.
All right, so who in the class could summarize what we just read? Ivan, you want to give it a shot in your own words? What is this all about here?
Sylvester is making a complaint to the special justice that Isabel, former slave, one of his former slaves, has. What happened? She ran away from him,
Yeah, it looks that way.
and he's requesting to have her returned.
Perfect, 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 perfect. Stephen, you want to add to that? I think he's got it, right?
Well, yeah, just the first, you want to go into what that questions that come to mind now?
That's great. Yes, go ahead. I love it. Go.
So my first thought would be, if she's a former slave, how could this person have any control over her?
I love that. I love that.
What is her relationship to him?
If she's
If
a
the
former,
word is former, which
If
I
she-
believe it is also now.
I do too. If she's a former, that is a great question. That is a great question.
So we don't know the date yet, which would be significant.
Right, right, right. Anybody else in the class have a question on their mind so far in terms of what we've discovered from this document? Anybody puzzled by anything before we go on? Okay, let's go on. Roll it, scroll it up, Oleg. These are therefore. Oleg, are you there? Oleg, hello. Can you move the document up? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good, good, good. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going, 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 more. One more click. Okay. Okay, these are therefore, right?
Yes.
Okay. Jason, you want to do a little reading? Jason,
Sure, Professor. Sorry.
thank you.
Um,
These are therefore.
these are therefore in the name of the people of the state of New York, to command you, the said constables and marshals, and every of you to apprehend the body of the said. How do, what is that? I can't read that.
What is that? Anybody?
Isabel.
Oh,
Oh,
Isabel.
that's Isabel.
Yes.
Oh, that's Isabel. So they want to get Isabel back, and yet she was a former slave, right?
They want her body back.
They want her body back. They don't care about her mind, huh? All right. Jonathan, you want to continue reading here? And forthwith bring.
Yeah, I got you. And forthwith bring before me or some other justice.
Oh, what is that? Him? Is that him or her?
Oh, wait, where?
And forthwith bring, and then somebody fills in the form. Is that him or her?
Forthwith bring me, bring. I don't know what that says. Oh, it says bring me her. Yeah.
Bring what?
Her.
That's her. It must be her. Anybody?
Yeah.
Everybody agree? Anybody think it's him? I think it's her.
It's her. It's talking about Isabel.
What's that?
It's talking about Isabel, so it has to be her.
It has to be her. It has to be her. Okay, Jonathan, go ahead. Before me or some other
And
justice.
forthwith bring her before me or some other justice of the peace for the city and county of New York at the police office in the city hall of the said city to answer the said charge and to be dealt with as the law directs.
Yeah.
Given under my hand and seal. This.
Yeah, go ahead. Now we're at pay dirt. What is
30.
that? 30. I agree.
This day of his in the year of our
No,
Lord.
no, no, not
181.
his. It's got to be a month. It's got to be a month. 30 day.
I think
of
it's
what?
May, 30th day of May.
30th day of May. Anybody else have a guess? I first thought it was July. I got to tell you.
I
But,
think it's supposed to July, maybe.
You think it's July also?
I would vote for May also.
I think
That-
it's May.
We got May. Anybody else with Sarkar and me with July?
I don't see any L.
Yeah, but look at that thing going down. Oh, that's the end of the Y. I see May. All right, I'm changing.
Yeah, and then the beginning is like some big M.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the date, don't we? No?
What's
What-
the year?
What's the year? Jonathan, are you still there? Hello. What's the year?
Yeah, I'm still here.
What's the year? So 30th day of May in what year?
May. Yeah, I can't tell.
You can't tell me?
1819.
You think it's 1819? Anybody
I
else
think-
have a guess?
I think it's 1819 or 1817.
1817. Anybody else? I think it's 1817 also. Anybody else? I think it's it's July 30th, 1817.
No, May 30.
Oh, I'm back to July. Sorry. May 30th, 1817. So we have the date. So we have who is the person. We know who wrote the document. We don't know yet what this document's about. I mean, we don't know why it was written. We know when it was written, and we know where it was written, right? Okay. We're getting good stuff. All right, let's move on down to the heart. Is that a signature after 1817? What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, that's undoubtedly the special justice.
Yeah. All right, Tiffany, the heart. First of all, Oleg, roll it up a bit so we have this. No, you're going the wrong way.
The direction, yeah.
Go up.
I
Is
think
that the
that's
end
all
of-
there is.
That's all there is? Okay,
Yeah.
Tiffany, the hard part. What does this say? What's this handwriting?
I don't know.
I don't know. What is that? Is that the something? The deaf? The what?
Yeah, the.
And what's the next word? Tiffany got a guess on that?
Left?
The left, the deft. Anybody else want to jump in on what that second word is?
No idea. Does something, but then it says brought before J.
Warner,
That's the justice's name, I believe. J. Dot and then his last name.
right?
And
who?
It's another name. That's
That's another name.
Right.
Okay.
another name and
Go ahead. You're hot. Keep going. And something Hobson.
yeah.
And then what?
and then it says, I think I want to thank or I want to.
No, adjudged
A judge to what?
to be a servant to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so we've read everything in the document. So Atta, what is this document about? All right, so what is this? We've just read the document. What is this document about?
Is basically saying that the people, like basically people should apprehend the body and give it back.
Well, I think the body's alive, right?
Yeah.
So they should apprehend this former slave, Isabel, and do what? What is this saying that what will happen to Isabel according to this document, Atta?
Bring it in front of the city hall and she should be punished and charged.
Where do you get punished?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at it right here to answer the said charge and to be dealt with as the law directs.
All right, but what does it say in that handwriting at the bottom? That what is really going to be happening? A judge to be what's going to really happen to Isabel? What is this saying? Isabel, you were a former slave, you ran away, and Saima, what's going to happen to Isabel?
I'm actually very confused.
You're very confused.
Yeah.
Dr. Lieberman, have you discussed New York State law during this period? Maybe that's their problem.
All right, give us the background about New York State law at this time. Go.
Because the question I would ask is, if she's a former slave, then is she free or not? And if she's free, what right does this person have to want her back? He would have no right. But in 1799, when New York State, again, I'm not sure what the students read
Yeah,
about.
they know about this. They know about this.
Well, the term slave was transferred. No one was called a slave at that point. They were referred to as indentured servants.
We've talked about that.
So if you were male and you were born after that date, you had 28 years until you could be free, or 1827.
Yeah.
And a woman, 1824, because it was 25 years. So this woman, Isabel, is his servant, no longer his slave. So if you're an indentured servant, you're indebted to the person you're working for a period of years. So I think based on that interpretation of the law, he wants her back because she's his indentured servant and she ran away and she owes him years of service still.
Okay. Question.
Okay, even though they aren't known as slaves anymore, but indentured servants, do they have any rights at this point?
Well,
Or
they
are they
don't have a
still, or are they still under the person's law?
they're still under the person's authority. So this was a way that many English residents came to the New World when they had no money. They agreed to work for somebody for a set number of years as that person's indentured servant, which just means they're in debt to this person. Indentured means to be in debt.
Yeah, but Christian is asking an important question.
Yeah.
Christian, tell me if I'm wrong. Your question is, okay, so they changed the name, right? This law was passed with this math that if after 1799, it's 28 years for a male and 24 years for a female, and then you're no longer a slave. But I think, Christian, what you're saying is, okay, they've changed the name from slave to servant. This servant, Isabel, owes some time, but does she have any rights? Christian, did I summarize it?
Yes, Professor, that's my question.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this. I'll say this. Yeah, and Weinstein, what's that?
Do they have any rights after the age of when they are supposed to be free?
Okay, so Weinstein, I'm going to give it a shot and say the big difference for Isabel, in terms of your question of rights, is that Isabel's children will be free. That Isabel is no longer seen as a slave property forever, that it's not inheritable. I think other rights like representation in court, the right to vote, all of this will get determined later. Weinstein, you want to jump in on that?
No, I agree completely.
Okay, okay.
She may not be legally free, but any children she has would be considered free. They do not take her status.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, very big step.
That's huge.
So another part I want to say is, so they have rights.
Yes.
So they have the freedom of speech, freedom of pursuit of happiness, and all rights. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah, except they cannot travel away on their own. They owe this person labor.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to pay off their debt.
Right, right. Let me just read to you that from the handout that we had, handout 100A. I'll just read this to you because I have it right in front of me. And this is what we worked on last Tuesday. This is the gradual emancipation that Hamilton was promoting, and then it was the Gradual Emancipation Act, which was all children born of slaves after July 4th, 1799 would be considered free. Nonetheless, they would continue to serve their parents' masters until 24 if female, 28 if male. All right, Christian, this starts to talk to your question. Existing slaves were not free, but the children would be free, right? But many slaves managed to buy themselves or negotiate a work agreement, and I think that's what Isabel did. In other words, I think Isabel negotiated or bought her freedom to be a servant and said, okay, make me a servant. I owe you a certain amount of money. Weinstein, what do you think of that interpretation?
I'm not so sure about that.
I love this. Tell me more.
Because I don't think she had to negotiate it. I think she automatically became an indentured servant.
Wow, I love that.
For a period of years. And
so you disagree, I love this. You disagree with the phrase existing slaves were not automatically freed.
Well, we don't know her age. That's the other thing.
Oh, that's so great. I love that.
Well, we'd have to determine how old she is, because they term her as a servant, which I take to be indentured servant.
Yeah.
Which might mean she was born before 1799.
Well, it's 1817, and if
Right,
she was
she'd be
born
18
in
at least.
and if it's 1817, if she were born in 1800, she'd be 17 years old. She's a woman, so she has another 7 years to be free.
Yes.
So we agree on that?
Tentatively, yes.
I love it. All right, all right. Okay, I hope you learned something from these two
Maybe
historians.
she's in the census.
Yeah, we'd have to look at other documents. So we want to do for the next 10 minutes is divide you up into groups. Oleg, you can get rid of the split screen.
If there's just one other thing I could mention, it's how important it is to read the document slowly and carefully. Because I can be honest with you, when I read the document earlier, I read it a little too quickly, and I didn't notice the word servant down at the very bottom.
Which is key.
Which changes the whole interpretation of it.
Which brought about Christian's question.
Yeah, so it's important to take your time and don't feel rushed.
Okay, so we're going to divide you up into groups. How many students do we have, Oleg?
13 students.
Oh, that's too bad. Okay.
It's a good number.
It'd be better if we had 14, but 13 is enough. So we have what? 6 groups of 2, and 5 groups of 2 and 1 group of 3, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we have 6 groups. Group 1, you're gonna get a document of a register of births in Castleton, Staten Island after 1799. 1799 being a crucial date because that's the date. If you were born after 1799, you had a certain number of years and you'd be free. So this is a document of births in Castleton, Staten Island of Black girls and boys, babies. And I think you're gonna get a choice of reading 4 different entries, right, Oleg? Stephen, is that right? They'll have 4 different.
Something like that, yeah.
So you pick the one that you think's most legible. And group 1, you find out who is the person the document is focused on. Group 2, skip who wrote the document, do what is the document about. Group 3, why was the document written? Group 4, when was the document written? Group 5, where was the document written? The name and the place, that's pretty easy. So group 5, do that and do question 6, what did you learn? And group 6, what did you find interesting about the document or what surprised you? So you're gonna get these, Oleg, they'll get 2 pages of documents or 1?
It's 2 pages or 3 pages.
Right, well, many of you have downloaded it already, so you can look at your download. So in those, we don't need the first page, because that's just the cover of the book, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we just need to look at page 2 or 3, pick one of the entries, and answer that one question that your group has, and you got 10 minutes to do it. Okay, Oleg, divide them up, and then we'll visit each group.
Okay. 2, 1, let's go.
Let's go. Group one, we got, we're gonna have to sort of continue this discussion the beginning of next class, but in the next few is group one, what'd you come up with in terms of what you picked? Who's group one?
Atta? Me and Atta?
Yeah, Brian, are you doing it or me?
You could go ahead and do it. I'll take 5 on this one.
All right. Professor, we picked the second page of the document and we came up with who wrote the document. It was John Barnes. I believe that's the last name.
And who is the person? Who's it focused on? Or you just wrote on who wrote the document?
We wrote on who wrote the document because it was one question allotted to us. So it was just who wrote the document.
Okay, group two, what question did you have?
Group 2 was Christian and Daisy.
Christian and Daisy, what do you got?
I think our question was something about who wrote the document.
What did you come up with?
I didn't have the was it the PDF files that you told us to download?
Yeah, so you didn't have it. Christian, did you have it?
No, Professor.
Okay, group three, what do you got? Where's group three?
Right here. I think we had why was it written?
Yeah, what did you come up with?
Yeah, so this document, it's a form book for the town of Castleton in Staten Island to classify all the Negro children born after 1799, classifying them and not as slaves.
And
so it's just a logbook that shows the name of the child, you know, female or male, and their birthday when they were born.
And why was that so important given what you know about the Emancipation Act?
Take it, Jason.
It was like a set of proof. So when the kids get older, they can be free, and it's like they're just logging the date of birth and all that. So
Jason, if you were that kid, how important would that document be to you?
the important is worth my life. if I was that kid.
You got it. Okay. See you all on Tuesday. Remember, the homework on Hamilton's due today and the homework on slavery May 10th. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Weinstein, for joining us.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Maybe I could come back next week.
Yeah, we'll bring
Would
him
be
back
nice.
on. We'll bring him back Tuesday. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank you, professors.
Great.